Hey, I'm Justin Rose. I've literally taught thousands of people to raise their own chickens for delicious eggs and meat. In today's video, I'm gonna show you, good morning to you too, how to take a normal chicken operation and get it ready for the winter. I will assure you though, I better turn this off. I should tell you though, don't be intimidated. This is super easy. It's sort of backwards. Some of the things I might tell you might surprise you. Let's jump right in. First of all, it's not actually the cold that you should be worried about. It's the moisture. You gotta keep the chickens dry. The very first thing going into the winter, I think one of the most important things going into the winter is that you actually have the right breed. If you have the right breed, you can follow the instructions I give you in this video and it's gonna be very easy. What's the right breed? Well, non-tropical, like heat-hardy breeds. Things like my these are Icelandics, I have Australorp, Rhode Island Reds, Barred Rock, all these like traditional dual purpose that can be used for meat and eggs. Those tend, you know, they've got a lot of feathers. They are like wild birds. Have you ever seen the wild birds flying about in the winter? No matter where you are, Minnesota, Alaska, two coldest states in the Union, you're gonna see those wild birds. If you have the dual purpose chicken breed, they are like that. One of the first ways we do that, keeping them dry, is pointing their coop towards the south. Right here, I have this coop basically pointed towards the south. It's a little off, but that's close enough. That's where most of your winter sun is gonna be, in the northern hemisphere anyway. It crosses the south and they're gonna get a lot of that sun during the day. We also keep that open. That may sound backwards to you. We keep the front of it open. It's the open air chicken coop concept. It's like from the 1920s, this guy wrote the book, and by the way, I'm gonna link all these resources down in the description, about keeping chickens dry with open air coops. It may seem absolutely backwards, but that south side should remain open. In our case, I would say down to minus 20 Fahrenheit. If you get lower than that consistently, you might want to consider shutting up the front of the coop, and except for maybe the top few inches so you can allow for ventilation. So there comes big danger in airtighting a coop, you know, putting insulation in, covering up the front. Why? Because you need that air circulation coming in. They don't need air directly on them at the perch level. But if you have ventilation and open front, even if some wind comes in and does get to them, it's gonna be okay because that air is circulating. Yes, warm air rises, but if you have vents, warm air rises and comes out the top and it keeps that air circulating. If air isn't circulating, they put off a lot of moisture and that will accumulate on their combs and their legs and on their bodies, and then that freezes and then they become really, really cold. So think backwards, keep the air ventilated. You think you want to shut it up, but they are birds, they have feathers, they are not humans with thin layer of skin to protect us from the cold. The third thing is you want to keep them well hydrated. I use these, oh, it needs a little bit cleaning out. I use these vacuum seal waterers here in zone 7. It might get down to -7, -9 some nights. I will just put this up at night. I'll put this in the basement in a somewhat heated room and it doesn't freeze, and I bring it out in the morning. Sometimes I forget, so I have a spare because it freezes at night and I bring the other one out. Look at this old waterer. Just exchanging that out for the new one, the fresh one. If you're colder than that, I would suggest a electric water heater. The weather says it feels like -8 out here. I don't care where you're from, -8, it's cold.
Look at
oh, look, it worked. Oh my gosh, it worked. The waterer worked. So we got one of those over this winter and it was really nice. We just plugged it in with an extension cord. If I was gonna be plugged in from the house, I'd run an extension cord out here, plug this in, and it actually worked. It actually kept the water clean. We've also had success with an Everflow waterer where we kept water moving through a water trough up from the pond, gravity fed, come through and back down to the creek. Look here guys, look at this nasty water. It's impossible to keep clean with these backwashing ducts. And now look, gravity fed water from the pond, always moving water, unfreezable, always clean. Let's see some hands up, beautiful one. Not only did it keep it from freezing, moving like that, it also kept it clean. You also want to keep them fed, that's obvious, but this is like our second backwards thing. One quick tip is normally you're probably feeding them in the morning. And I would keep doing that, but I would also then ration some of that back and feed them in the afternoon. And they can come out and eat that before they go in at night, and them having that food towards the evening fills up their crop. They bring it through their system, and that digestive process helps keep them warm. There are also creative feeds like vermicomposting. Nice vermicompost that the worms have created. It's such a nutrient dense soil, and you can, since this is going to be a garden in the spring, I just throw it out, vermicomposting and all. And they eat the worms and leave the composting for the garden. Animal products. You can feed them eggs. They love eggs. Great source of protein. Great thing that she's running off with it. It's got some bacon in there, other animal products. Weeds. A dandelion. You can actually harvest weeds if there's such thing as a weed. You can harvest the dandelion and you can actually eat this entire thing. Flower, stem, leaf, and root. And so can the chicken. Sprouting. It increases the protein level of any grain by 20%, any grain or legume. These are some beans, some corn, and you can see that they've sprouted, and it increases the enzyme level. It's all kind of goodness here, so I'm going to throw that to them. Because things aren't growing, like this grass won't be growing in the winter. They're not going to have this green source. You can also get them to work. You need to get them out and moving and exercising. So here they're on pasture, so they're working in the cow manure. They're stirring up the grass. They're eating, well, there won't be any bugs in the winter, but you can put them in an area you want to garden. Say I wanted this to be a garden area. Leave them in here and let them eventually till this up. If it snows, chickens do not like to walk out in the snow. They don't like to get their feet wet, really. So if it's a snow, lay out some untreated hay, some unsprayed hay, and they will walk out on the snow on top of that hay. So put their water, maybe a feeder out, and put the hay out, and they will tend to spend more time out of their coop in that instance. Got some hay here to throw down, actually for them to eat, but also to encourage them to get out on the snow. Okay, they don't like walking on this stuff. Look how beautifully that worked. They came right out. Does that cheer you guys up, guys? All that food? Yum. Some sprouted grains, some steak. It's been soaked, sprouted. You guys are loving this. You even came out of the nice warm house for this. The fifth tip is you want to give your chickens a choice. Let them make a decision. Let them decide if they want to go out or if they want to stay in. This is cool. Some of them are underneath hanging out. That's awesome. Don't lock your chickens in. If you don't have a mobile chicken coop situation like this and you have a stationary coop, you want to do deep bedding in there if possible. I would do 4 inches of carbon material. We use wood chips because we can get wood chips. You could use leaves, you could use untreated hay, things like that. Keep it up to 4 inches because again, you're fighting moisture. I don't know if you know this, but holy chicken squat is 85% moisture. So they're pooping, maybe your water's in there. If possible, keep your water outside and not inside the coop because remember, you want to keep them moist. You want to get all the water out of there. So if they're pooping, you want this carbon material to absorb that and balance that out. So it's not just this big wet mess in the bottom of that coop. Another thing is you want vents. Remember, you don't want an airtight coop. So in my instance, let's say this is my Chickshaw Mini-Me. I have ventilation on the side here and the front and through the back, and then the roof and then the floor is 1-inch wire mesh. So wind, breezes, air can come through and out. It will come through the front, sides, bottom, and out the back. Now, if I was really cold, say -20, I would maybe keep this in one spot for a while and put untreated hay bales around the edges to prevent some of that wind coming through, I would not cover this. I would not cover the, well, if it was, I would not cover the front unless I got colder than -20 on a regular basis. If I did, I would maybe put plastic over this, and I would leave maybe 4 inches at the top so they still have ventilation above where they perch. That's where they perch, so I want to do ventilation above that. And in that case, I would cover the sides with plastic too for the winter, and then I would just pull it off. So if you have a regular coop, and you extreme cold, like -20 or more, cover up the front, leave a few inches for ventilation, and in that case, I would also leave the back. We have an overhang here that is a natural ventilation, but there's also a ventilation through this nest box, and I would keep that. I would keep this towards the windy north side, and I would keep my more open end towards the south. The 9th quick win here is roosting space. Right here, I have enough roosting space for about 20 birds. A good rule of thumb is to surface up about 9 inches is about what a chicken needs. These little ices, they probably need less than that. But the idea here is that you want them to have enough roosting space so that everybody gets off the ground. Why? Because the ground is going to be where the moisture is. Here's another point. You also want to make sure they have a ramp to get up to their perches. Some of your coops, maybe the perches are higher. You might need a ramp, especially if you're clipping your wings to keep your chickens in. Get them a ramp, get them up on their roost at night. You don't want anybody sleeping the night on the ground. If you have a static run, if you have a static coop, not only do you want to do, I already mentioned having deep bedding inside the coop, you would also want to do deep bedding outside the coop if possible. Outside the coop, up to 18 inches if possible. That will keep the lower actual ground from freezing. And the chickens can actually till and scratch that and sometimes get down in there into some of that microbial life, worm life, and get them a little snack, and it keeps them busy moving around that bedding, but it also helps to keep things dry, and then they're not just like standing in a cake of manure all winter. The last thing I want to mention is that you want to keep them working. One really quick way, let's say you don't have snow on the ground, you could put feed on the ground. And then they gotta walk around for it, they gotta scratch for it. Don't put it in a feeder, just put it on the ground. Another way to keep them working is put them in an area you want to be tilled into a garden. Winter is a great time because things are not growing. It's a great time to get chickens on a tilling project, getting your garden ready for the spring. That's it for this video. Hopefully it helps you. Hopefully it helps keep your chickens warm and happy this winter. Hopefully it shows you it doesn't have to be as hard as sometimes we make it to be, or scary as we make it to be. I mean, I traveled America. I went to some of the coldest places in this nation, Alaska, Minnesota, and I didn't really see a lot of people fretting too much about their chickens. And from what I understand they do is basically the concepts I just told you. They just keep it aerated, they keep it ventilated.
He's cutting a hole because we need to make a vent.
They keep the wind off of them at perch level. They keep the water going. You don't want them to run out of water. If it's snowing, they put something down to encourage them to go out, and they keep them warm. Now we'll put your little heart at ease and just remember that those chickens are like those wild birds flying around. They're gonna be just fine. If you want more info on this, some of the creative feeds, some more pictures, some more video of this type of stuff, I actually created a chapter for my permaculture chickens course. I'm gonna give it to you guys. You just gotta sign up for it. Go check that out, it's in the description.